Hello and welcome. I'm coming to you from central London at a place which celebrates East India's culinary heritage called Chaurangi, and I'm very pleased to share that this round table, rectangular table conversation actually is about the all-important and the landmark deal that is being touted as one which is extremely comprehensive and clearly painstakingly has taken long to about to come to a signatory deal. And to discuss just that, I have with me a panel. Turns out that it's a manel. I have no woman on the panel. Let me go for my left with the introductions. Anuj Chande of Grant Thornton, and he's also the architect of the India-UK tracker, which you've been doing for years now, of businesses. Vish Acharya, who's an educator and an entrepreneur, and also has business interests in the US. Richard Heel, thank you for joining us, Chair at UK IBC. Pratik Dattani of Bridge India and Managing Director at EPC Consultancy. And Praveen, you are an entrepreneur and CEO at Scrum Connect.
That's right.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for making it on a weekday. I know it is a hassle to get around London. And we are discussing just what we are decoding the FTA for our audience. We are trying to understand what this means for me, what it means for you, what it means for India and the UK, and with this lovely embrace that the two great economies are doing, and we know how dynamic the two economies are, what it means for the world. So let's try and get a summary of what the top headlines are, and I will stop talking. So let me go to you, Anuj.
Yes.
Give us the summary of what this FTA is, top headlines.
I think it's a record-breaking FTA, given the fact it's probably the first one that India is doing with a Western nation. It's the third largest one the largest one that the UK has done after Japan and Australia, and it's the first one post-Brexit. So in that context, it's a record-breaking deal, and I think it's. Apart from trade, it's also covering and has knock-on effects on other areas such as investment as well. I think in terms of the key highlights of the deal, I would say trade is obviously the most important one. 90% of UK goods will be duty-free.
Yes.
Going into India, and 99% going the other way from India to UK. There's going to be ability for digital transfer, data protection from both aspects. On the services side, there's increasing mobility of labour.
Yes.
Between the two nations, and you've also got the double contribution convention, which again allows for that 3-year social security break on both sides.
Yes.
Of the country.
Yeah, great.
There's great things for the SME market. It allows UK companies to get into the public procurement market in India. So there's a lot there to be covered.
There's a lot
But
of-
obviously the devil is in the detail, which we'll see tomorrow after it's signed.
Sure. That's already a great deal of detail, but there's a lot in the sense there's a lot of exchange of people, ideas, exports. Will that mean physically, Richard, we will see a lot of changes in the sense a lot more of made in Indias that we'll be wearing perhaps, because textile is a big part of it, and a lot of British made items on the streets of India?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, I agree with Anuj that there is going to be a substantial impact. You talk about textiles, obviously that is going to, as a major import into the UK from India, we'll see that increase. In areas like pharmaceuticals as well, there will be an impact there as well. And I think that on the other side, you're looking at areas like technical machinery. We talked about the procurement, allowing procurement to take place. Obviously, bulk imports of alcohol into India is going to stimulate domestic production and technical development in that area as well. So I think, and also luxury goods, luxury cars, for instance,
Yes.
there's going to be a cap there. So I think that we are going to see an increase in the impact of Indian imports here in the UK, and we're going to see an increase in the level of imports from the UK into India as well.
Yeah. Pratik, how is the business community viewing this? Obviously, there's a great deal of optimism, but what is the real buzz? Is there a sense that markets and making and manufacturing, all of this is going to improve, or is it more of a, yeah, fine, the headlines are looking great, but let's wait to see what it has?
Yeah, the UK figures show that bilateral trade will increase by 28 billion, but over a 10-year period. So it's not that from tomorrow we'll start benefiting, it will take some time. UK companies accessing things like the 38 billion pound public procurement market in India, that will take many, many years for that to actually come to fruition. India will still remain a difficult place for British companies to engage in that procurement process. But I think, to Richard's point, what's really exciting is with these government-to-government trade deals, quite often it just feels like something that will impact other people rather than yourself. But once you see the Made in India products here more on the high street and the Made in Britain products more in tier 2 and tier 3 cities in India, that's when it becomes real for people. And that's when the momentum really kind of starts. And that's where the textiles, the apparel, the footwear is really important, because that's where people on the UK high street will suddenly start seeing India's name much, much more.
Yeah, excellent, great point. And thanks for mentioning that the timeline and the ramification of this FTA is going to take a wee while, because while it's imminent that the deal is likely to be signed on by the two prime ministers and the relevant foreign secretaries, there's also going to be trade secretaries rather. There's also going to be a wee while before, so the details will be out when the actual deal papers, which are running into thousands of pages, will be released to all of us in the media and to public. And at the same time, the effect will actually be seen about 2026, would that be? So it will take some time because before all of this happens. But a news such as this obviously means a great sense of optimism. There's a sense of bullish investment from Indian businesses here in the UK and from businesses in Britain investing in India. But let's get the headlines first before we go into the details of how businesses would be affected, how your everyday could change or my everyday could change, which will take a while. What's the report card on trade when it comes to India and the UK? Does the UK continue to remain in the sixth spot now?
It does remain in the sixth spot. I think having said that, in terms of investment, India is a number two, second largest investor after the US in terms of investment.
In the UK?
In the UK, yes.
Yes. And so just reiterating that India is the second largest investor in the UK after the US, and the UK is the sixth largest trading partner in the UK, in India with businesses. Richard, this took years, more than 3 years. And while I noticed, Anuj, you said after Japan, this is the first deal. We've had deals after Brexit. With the UK has had deals with Japan, with New Zealand. But is this one with India a real deal, comprehensive, hardly fought from both sides because of the number of negotiation rounds we've seen running into close to 20 or something?
I hesitate to call it comprehensive. I mean, it's certainly 26 chapters, and it covers a very wide range of topics and subjects. There are certain things that aren't in it because you don't normally have these chapters, these things like the bilateral investment treaty is not in there. It hasn't yet been agreed. Minister Sitharaman was over here and sat with the Chancellor, and they are obviously in discussions in relation to that. Also the social agreements, social security in relation to temporary, is not part of the free trade agreement. It sits alongside it and they're interlocking. But, you know, there are certain elements. What I like about it is how it is structured in a way that allows flex and allows you to change or review the chapters as the future unfolds. And so the analogy I use is that this is a floor, it's not a ceiling. And we will see unknown technologies coming through, we will see developments coming through, maybe in process, manufacturing processes, which will allow us to flex the agreement going forward. The other point I would make, which I like about this agreement, is it is not covering everything. It is covering those areas that both countries either have an expertise in or have a desire to have. And therefore, both sides are winning without having opened up complete Pandora's box in terms of all the products and everything that could be. So a lot of focus has gone into this.
Great. Sounds comprehensive and clever, because it seems like it's a, thank you for that analogy, a platform, a foundation for the building to then be envisioned, because that is something nobody has seen. We don't know what the structure is going to be, as admitted by the negotiators, that there are many things we don't know. So maybe it is an experiment, but one that is not hurried into, because there's going to be a constant review of the numbers, of evidence, of data to see who's benefiting and how much, and then a pullback perhaps. But is it a challenge? I was going to ask whether it's a challenge that it's so broad, or is it probably an advantage because it is broad, which allows for more room for negotiation? Anybody can take that question.
I think the nature of industry today is very different to what it was 10 years ago. So manufacturing is, the way manufacturing is done in the UK, engineering is done is very different. There are a whole new set of jobs that technology and AI have enabled, which probably in the first round of negotiation couldn't have been envisaged. So ChatGPT, for example, didn't exist in its current form when the first round of negotiation started. So I think having that framework, rather than being incredibly specific, is important. But I think the trade agreement is a wider signaling mechanism outside the UK and India as well, where the world has reached peak globalization thanks to what's happening in Washington. What the UK and India have been able to say is that we can sit down over a number of years, be very, very detailed, understand each other's concerns and desires, and approach this conversation as partners. And both countries have kind of led the way to approaching deal making in a way that Washington has not been able to.
Thanks. That's my segue to, it's a great segue to my next question. What has London and New Delhi done here? Is this also a political strategy to make this economic embrace at a time there's so much tension in the world, to say, look, it's fine to sign a trade deal with one country in two vastly different continents and see how this is going to work? Is this political strategy? Anybody?
I mean, I think it probably, I can't speak for the Prime Minister of India, but I believe that from an Indian perspective, it is a signal. It is a signal to the world at large that the UK is an important trading and investment partner, and the fact that the Prime Minister is coming to sign the deal so quickly after the conclusion of the agreements on the 6th of May, I think speaks a lot for itself. And I think, as you say, in the context of the tariff confusion that we have coming in from Washington, this is a great beacon of light. But I think, to answer your question specifically, I think it is a political statement to the rest of the world.
Okay, thank you. And confusion is a mildly put way. Richard, your comments.
No, I agree with that. I think that what we're seeing is obviously an adjustment in multilateralism. We're seeing adjustments in the previous rule-based systems. And if you look at what has been signed, and we've seen the agreements in New Zealand and Australia and Japan. This is a different continent, and what it tells me is that the focus is now on strategic economic security on a bilateral basis. And it, as I said, it is looking at what India needs in order to achieve its Bharat and what the UK can offer to help India achieve that ambition. So I think it is strategic. I think it is absolutely focused. And I believe that it will be a success.
Okay. Thanks for that
So if I may
optimism.
add,
Yes,
add to
Praveen.
what Richard and Pratik talked about. Pratik briefly alluded to ChatGPT, right? So
Yes.
although it has taken 7-8 years to sign this deal, I think the timing is perfect for India and UK at this time. So if you see, there's ChatGPT coming driven by US and DeepSeek, which these are two historical movements. Yeah, I think the timing is really good, although it has taken 7-8 years to sign this deal. Like I said, there are two big things which Pratik alluded to is ChatGPT is one and DeepSeek is the other. So in an AI world, these are big significant movements, right? When DeepSeek was announced, pretty much all the stock markets went down by 25-30% odd, right? So this why I say it is right because UK can tap deep technical prowess of India, and likewise India can tap how UK deals with its government and citizens, right? How it has been number one
compliance and
compliance, but more how it designs the services, how it interacts with its citizens.
Yeah.
That's quite unique for both. So it's win-win.
So it's a win-win. Great. And the governance and the compliance, perhaps, which is something that India can tap into. Because we're talking so much about Washington and the US, you have business in the US, and it's a deadlock between India and the US with the trade deal not being so imminent, clearly. But what is the buzz among businesses in the US? Are they watching the deal with great enthusiasm? Is there a sense of envy at all?
Yeah, the buzz is there definitely, and then yes, and the word you used, envy, is also there.
Really?
Yeah, and quick thoughts which were coming up were because of this facility where there is no necessity of subsidiary to operate, in India for UK companies and vice versa. When some of them are contemplating that, yes, they could establish something in UK to get the access to India. That was one of the key point which kind of flashed, by some people.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then the broader, conclusion was this deal was sounding like a perfect one, and they have perceived that it's not just built on, some calculations, but based on trust. Because it took quite some time to get to this stage, and the kinds of sectors they've opened up to, and the kinds of tariff-free things,
Yeah.
right? Like 140% to 40% for alcohol.
Yeah.
It's quite some time.
Yeah, it's significant.
And then 10% tariff on things. So
Yeah.
these things were being pursued very.
It takes
yeah.
trust. Great point. It takes trust. Praveen, what changes for you as an entrepreneur?
I think there are a few points which Anuj and Pratik mentioned is access for UK SMEs to Indian procurement SMEs. So again, devil is in the details. We'll have to see what comes out, but that's a big win-win. And likewise, from India perspective, they get the visa circulations. It means easier for businesses here that we can hire people. So I think I'm personally excited, but lots of people in India, especially the Indian men, would be happy with the whiskey prices going down. So I think that's the big headline. I think the Indian people will be waiting.
Yes, can't keep whiskey out of the conversation at all, in any conversation, but particularly this one. Okay, any challenge areas? There are still challenges which both sides are trying to overcome. Agriculture, as we know, is kept out of the remit of these conversations from India's side, particularly given that it is an agrarian economy still. But challenges, things that have not been touched upon, which you envision or foresee could pose challenges. Who wants to go? Yeah.
So one thing that is touched upon a little bit is recognition of professional qualifications on both sides. That means architects, lawyers, accountants, etc.
Specialized skills.
Exactly, and while in the long term that's a wonderful thing, particularly if UK firms are able to access the procurement market in India, the legal market, etc. As we've seen from the conversation between the Law Society of England and Wales and their counterparts in India, while there has been an announcement that the legal sector in India is opening up, when that actually happens, we don't know. And likewise, there will be very, very similar conversations around market access, around protectionism, around complementarity or similarity between relative skill sets between the two countries in the architecture field and in the other fields. So I think that can be a big opportunity. It won't show up in the statistics for trade in goods, which is what a lot of the free trade agreement is about. But I think those things are very important for mobility between the two countries. Because when we talk about mobility, it's usually Indians coming here to the UK to work. But this will enable Brits to then work in India.
Yeah, sure. Is that something that Britain is also looking at keenly?
No, I think this summarised the situation very well. I mean, the one thing that maybe is not in the FTA, but we are starting to see a change in behaviour is in the higher education sector, because obviously education is absolutely huge as far as, and fundamentally important as far as India is concerned. And the emphasis seems to be, we're starting to see green shoots. It seems to be that UK is becoming more sophisticated in how it's exporting education. So you're starting to see universities setting up campuses in India, so
Yes.
Southampton, Liverpool, etc.
Yeah.
Rather than just taking that tip of the iceberg who can afford to come here and pay large fees, it is looking to export the capabilities of UK education into India in a way that is more acceptable and more affordable as far as the general. So that is an interesting dynamic.
It is. And why not? Because India is such a great market. It is one of the highest exporters of student for higher education for a brief period. Remind us, how many Indian companies are in the UK?
Yeah, so based upon our most recent India meets Britain tracker, there are about just under 1,200 Indian companies in the UK. It's actually up from 971 last year, so it's a 23% increase. It's the largest increase we've actually witnessed in the 12 years we've been doing the report. And the combined turnover has been 72 billion, again up from 68 billion last year. And in terms of employment, Indian companies employ 126,000 people, up from 118,000 last year.
Yeah.
And this excludes the branches of Indian companies. So if you added that, then potentially it could be much, much larger. If you take, for example, the top 5 Indian IT companies, they probably employ around 60,000 people alone, just those 5 T companies. Many companies do operate as branches as opposed to companies. So significant contribution.
Significant contributions, and you see real appetite, real ambition on India's side to be able to play on its strengths. And the projections are, well, the UK has said that it is likely to add to its GDP close to 5 billion in the next few years, and India is hoping to add or support at least 5 million jobs across sectors, mainly with exports being in the mix. But overall, the devil is in the details. I'll say it the third time just for a hat trick. We've heard it a couple of times on this conversation. The details will be out soon. It's nearly done. The signatures are going to be on. There's a great sense of optimism on both sides that I gather. And finishing comments. Is it a wait and watch, optimism, any final words? One word for the deal. Let's get one words.
I think that this period from signing the agreement until actual ratification is critical in terms of getting the messages across about what the opportunities are for Indian companies in the UK and UK companies in India. Because unless that is sold to SMEs and medium-sized companies within the supply chains, then it's all words on a piece of paper.
Yes.
So the work has got to start now in terms of educating.
Sure. It's done, but it's not done.
I mean, so Richard makes a very, very good point. It's the lack of awareness amongst, particularly UK SMEs, of the India opportunity is alarming. So I think it is important, and it's important for the UK government and the Indian government, and also individuals like ourselves who are involved in this ecosystem, to actually now say to UK SMEs, as I say, that actually India
This is what it
India.
means.
This is the opportunity.
To chisel out those messages and offer it in a simplified way to encourage movement on the ground. Historic, nevertheless. So let's get one word, Pratik, one word for this deal, or for just, is it a deal or has it been an ordeal to get to the deal? One word.
I think ambitious and trend setting globally.
Excellent. Great point.
I'd say future fit. It allows flexibility to develop into the future.
Okay, great.
Deal based on trust.
Trust, great. Okay.
It's the beginning of the journey.
Okay. A beginning of the journey. Yes.
Leverage and execute fast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Expedite action,
Leverage each other's
basically.
strengths and
Yeah.
execute fast, like I should say.
Yeah. Get what's best for each other. Thanks so much, gentlemen, for those lovely comments and sharing your mind space on the deal, on the fact that the two prime ministers are going to sit across each other on a table to share a cup of tea, discuss the fine details, and perhaps just get on to sign it. Radhika Iyer signing off from London, NDTV.